While ordinary people in our country are still struggling to make a living, our neighbors in India have already begun to tackle the biological challenge of reproductive isolation. The appearance of the third sister-in-law fully demonstrates two things. First, when true love arrives, it often doesn't require a beautiful appearance.
This is what love is. Shouldn't it be like this?
Second, reproductive isolation does indeed exist when different species mate but cannot produce offspring, or the offspring they produce are highly infertile. This biological mechanism is called reproductive isolation. Life in nature follows. Fish with fish, shrimp with shrimp, a lame donkey with a foam donkey, a giant eagle with Yanguoyu can't just mix things up. As the saying goes, dragons give birth to dragons, phoenixes to phoenixes, mice dig holes, and sparrows nest in roof cracks. Most species have reproductive isolation. Humans, chickens, ducks, cows, fish, echina, seishi. So according to this theory, it's very likely that Honghire might not actually be the biological son of the bull demon king. Let's take a moment to feel sorry for the old bull demon king. The first type of reproductive isolation is called prezygotic isolation. In other words, in nature, due to differences in physiological structure and physical appearance, an echidna would never, under any circumstances, be interested in a seishi, nor should it be. Even if humans were to force them to live together for 2.5 years, at most, they would only develop a pure French-type accept, of course, for poodles. As the saying goes, a sparrow can't sleep with an eagle, and Wu Dalan could never marry a Kardashian. Even if we take a step back and say this, Seth's blackbird is very attractive. Domesticated bird is as proud. No wild bird is alluring so much that as soon as the Arctic tern sees it, it starts trembling, can't stand up straight, and wants to start an interspecies romance. Their reproductive cells still couldn't fuse. That's because the receptors on their reproductive cells don't match, so they can't form a fertilized egg. They're products of two different systems, dude. You really think you can use a sword from the previous dynasty to execute an official of the current one? Now let's suppose this Arctic tern just got incredibly lucky and its reproductive cells did successfully fuse. It would then face an even bigger problem, a mismatch in chromosome numbers. For example, horses have 64 chromosomes, while donkeys have 62. When they mate, their offspring, the mule, ends up with 63 chromosomes. But when a mule tries to produce its own reproductive cells, it runs into a major issue. Those 63 chromosomes can't be evenly divided in half. It's like that common question we get asked. 5 bosses show up, but you only have 4 cigarettes in your pocket. What do you do? The best way is to simply not give the leader a voice. Clearly, mules understand this logic too. Since it's impossible to split things evenly, they just give up on the process altogether. If it's too difficult to handle, then just don't handle it at all. That's why mules can't undergo meiosis to produce viable reproductive cells, and naturally, they can't have offspring. In biology, this situation is called synapsis disorder. Now, taking it a step further, suppose both parents have the same number of chromosomes, and their reproductive cells fuse. But because their chromosome structures differ, and the two sets of genes for development and metabolism aren't the same, it's like two teams from different systems that can't work together effectively or communicate. I'm talking city gates, you're talking hip joints. I say old geezer, you say mischievous monkey. I say Ma Dong Mei, you ask Ma what Mei. One is AM, the other is FM. Everyone's on a different frequency. How could there possibly be any result? So, you end up with two sets of genes, each expressing a bunch of proteins in cells that can't integrate. After a few rounds of cell division, everything falls apart, and the offspring simply can't survive. Overall, reproductive isolation is a mechanism that ensures biodiversity. Without reproductive isolation, in the short term, some things that everyone would find entertaining might happen, though I won't say exactly what. But in the long run, because all species would be able to exchange genes, the genetic makeup of all living things would become highly similar. Without species diversity, a single virus could potentially wipe out all life on Earth in one go. So, reproductive isolation is actually a good thing. Don't try to break it. Here, I'd like to advise those few Indian guys to behave themselves and not pull these kinds of clever tricks. Again, these little tricks. However, for us humans, the period of geographic isolation between different races hasn't been long enough to form genetic barriers. And in modern society, genetic exchange between races can happen at any time. So, it's likely that reproductive isolation will never occur within the human species. There's a theory that says modern humans have between 2 to 4% of their genes inherited from Neanderthals, which shows that our ancestors, Homo sapiens, and Neanderthals never developed complete reproductive isolation. It's said that some people feel depressed late at night because the Neanderthal genes are acting up. After all, Homo sapiens wiped out the Neanderthal show. Could you not feel depressed about that? However, to say that there is absolutely no reproductive isolation between humans isn't entirely accurate either. When a hopeless admirer can't win his goddess, that could be considered a kind of reproductive isolation. As the saying goes, all rejections from goddesses sound the same, but each admirer is unique. Everything in the universe is subject to gravity, yet you still can't attract her. How could that not count as a form of reproductive isolation?